Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Power, welcome. Good to see you again. It's no secret that I've been deeply concerned with the direction of the Biden administration's foreign policy, and you and I have had many discussions in this area. I would hope, though, that we both agree that first, USAID has a valuable role to play regarding development assistance, and second, that USAID's mission should remain separate from controversial debates that often divide other parts of the State Department. One of the controversies has been the Biden administration's deliberate, systemic, and reckless appeasement of terrorist groups everywhere, from the Western Hemisphere to the Middle East. From day one, the administration has removed the terrorist designation and provided resources to Iranian-linked terrorist groups around Israel's border, including pouring money into Hamas-controlled territory. In the Western Hemisphere, they did the same thing with the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, the FARC, which provided enormous and dangerous momentum to anti-American movements across the hemisphere. Now, we can disagree about the wisdom of those decisions, but I would have hoped we would have agreed that USAID shouldn't be entangled in these deeply divisive decisions. And so I guess what I would ask, let's start by talking about Colombia and the FARC. Why is it that USAID actively participated and supported the revocation of the terrorist and narcotics-related designation of the FARC?
I would have to get back to you. I'm not aware of the process and deliberations that you're talking about.
Okay, well, let me help you on that. On January 24th, 2022, there was a decision memo in USAID. The USAID, the subject is Request for Concurrence to Modify USAID Programming Following Revocation of the Terrorist and Narcotics-Related Designations of the FARC. You signed that memo. You approved that shift. The memo explicitly embraces modifying USAID programming to enhance our support in light of the revocation of terrorist and narcotics-related designation of the FARC. Why is USAID getting in the middle of that?
Well, let me say what we're in the middle of in Colombia. We're in the middle of trying to support the peace process that culminated in a peace, but the implementation of a peace. And we have worked for decades in the most underdeveloped areas from which the FARC recruited over so many years in agriculture, in livelihood support, and transitioning people away from, growing things that are not in anybody's interest for them to be growing. And so I apologize for not being able to recall this particular piece of paper that you're describing, especially if my signature is on it. That's I'll get back to you on that. But on the general thrust of our programming on the ground in Colombia, we do work in trying to ensure that soldiers who've gone back to their communities have an alternative source of livelihood so they don't pick up guns again. So I suspect that is, in general, the logic of the adjustment, to be able to do that.
Well, I will say the Biden administration's decision to embrace the FARC was a huge blow to Ivan Duque's government, which was pro-America, which was a strong ally. And the pattern we've seen from the Biden administration is they actively undermine strong allies, particularly in Latin America. And the result is, congratulations to the Biden administration, they pushed and ended up getting the first Marxist president in power in Colombia, who is explicitly anti-American, Gustavo Petro. And by the way, Biden's managed to do the same thing in Brazil. Over and over again, the Biden administration is hurting U.S. national security interest because ideology is a higher priority. Let's shift to another part of the world, the Middle East, the Gaza Strip. USAID pours resources into the Gaza Strip, and usually USAID lists its grants for public scrutiny and disclosure. Last year, a mysterious $10 million grant appeared on the website. It was for $10 million. It had no recipient, and it was listed as going to the West Bank. after my office began investigating what this was, your office let us know that every detail of that was wrong, that the millions were actually not sent to the West Bank, they were sent to the Gaza Strip. The amount was wrong, it was $5 million and not $10 million, and that the organization should have been listed, but it's an organization that only works in the Gaza Strip, so if it had been listed, it would have been obvious that it was going to the Gaza Strip and the public designation was wrong. Did you launch an investigation as to why that public disclosure was so wildly wrong? Every aspect of it was less than forthcoming and accurate about what USAID was doing in the Gaza Strip?
I will, going forward, look into those discrepancies. That is unusual. Something like that has not been brought to my attention before. You know, something that goes out publicly claiming one thing about a grant recipient when something else entirely is true. So I will absolutely look into it. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate the follow-up of the results of your investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.